large-scale joint airstrikes by Israel, the United States, and the United Kingdom target the capital of Yemen, Sana'a. What's going on, Larry? In your opinion, how long do they want to continue this way with the case of Yemen?
Well, it's going to go on until somebody runs out of missiles, rockets, or bombs. This is a clear example of rage and frustration and impotence. The United States has pretended to be this mighty military power, and yet they cannot defeat the Houthis in Yemen. I mean, the Houthis are not exactly ranked in the top 10 of military forces in the world, but by God, they are tenacious fighters. And it exposes really the criminal conduct of Washington, London, and Israel. You're bombing the capital. The capital's not launching the missiles. The missiles are out in the desert. So the missiles are in mountain valleys. So this is just to try to punish. But even then, they sort of pulled up short. The good news was there was a massive rally of Houthis in Sana'a and supporters of the government, and they were not attacked, thankfully, because there was more than I think 1 million people assembled there. But this again, this is the point of using force, using violence, is to eliminate or defeat a threat. But when all you're doing is trying to antagonize, is probably the best way to describe it. That's all the Brits and the Americans are doing. What do they blow up a chicken coop? Maybe they hit a military headquarters, but so far, all military decisions in Yemen, they've continued without pause over God, we're now 13 months into this. Could anyone have imagined back in December of 2023 when Lloyd Austin announced the start of Operation Prosperity Guardian that 13 months later the Houthis would still be firing missiles off into Israel, and they would be attacking ships in the Red Sea, and maritime traffic in the Red Sea would still be shut down? This after supposedly the most mighty military power on the face of the earth can't stop it, can't fix it. So, this is just more what I'd call senseless violence on the part of the West.
Larry, the missile production in Yemen is indigenous or they're importing these missiles?
I don't know. I would suspect some of it's, significant portions imported. But I also have been told that they've got their own ability to produce internally. So, I've not had any access to the classified information on that. All I know is they still got a lot of missiles, and they're still able to keep firing there, and they've been firing some very sophisticated hypersonic missiles that the Israelis have been unable to shoot down. That should catch everyone's attention.
And here comes the situation in Yemen. We know that these people, this country has suffered a lot of conflicts, wars, hunger, everything, all sort of pressures on them, but they couldn't break them. They couldn't defeat them.
Right.
And right now, the way that you see the United States is behaving as though they can defeat Yemenis, or there are some elite leaders above them that they, by killing them, as Israel was talking about, by removing them, by assassinating them, they can defeat Yemenis. How how is that going to work in reality? Do they have does it have anything to do with the reality of this fight between the West and Yemenis?
Well, no. Look, what it's what it's showing are the limitations of conventional military power. The United States is still operating on what I'd call a 20th century model. And in the 20th century, you deploy military force, you launch bombing raids, you launch naval gunfire, you do all these things, and the other side acquiesces, gives up. Now we're in the 21st century, and we're seeing something different. And it's not just with the United States, it's also with Israel. Here is Israel touted as, and they do have a significant, one of the strongest military forces in terms, if you measure by manpower, different types of weapon systems, using the combination of combat air and tank armored units, with all those advantages. In their response to the October 7th attack was to try to destroy Gaza. Ostensibly they were going to defeat Hamas, but they really wanted to destroy Gaza. And it's not like Gaza is, Russia. It doesn't stretch across 11 time zones. It's a very small, it's really roughly about the size of all of New York City, metropolitan New York City. And so when you've got a very well-defined target with defined borders, and it's not like, Hamas didn't have a line of communication, that they could use going, either through the maritime route or a land route. It's not like they bordered Egypt and the Egyptians could resupply them. So they had every disadvantage. And yet, here we are 14 months since Israel started its attacks on Hamas. And Hamas is still killing Israeli soldiers. Israel has not been able to quiet and contain it. That's the same thing that we're witnessing in Yemen. The United States has put a carrier task force group in there, and we're going to show them. And we've launched bombing strikes off of carriers. We've launched B-1 bombers sent from other bigger bases. And what we're running up against is that when the Houthis are using mobile missile launchers, the key word there is mobile. It moves around. And the United States, despite all of its technological prowess and sophistication, still has not managed to create what I call the Eye of Sauron, based on Lord of the Rings, this all-seeing eye that exactly where somebody or something is at any particular time, and you can reach out and destroy it. That's turned out not to be the case. So in exposing the limitations of U.S. military power, this thing's going to continue. The only way to end it would be to kill all the Houthis. Is that what the United States is going to do? Engage in genocide? This is just, this. I think this is working against the United States, is exposing it as an impotent power, at least with respect to taking care of the situation in the Red Sea.
Or maybe forcing Netanyahu to stop the genocide in Gaza. That's why they can stop this attack on Israel.
Well, that's
the way to stop them, because that's so simple. They just want to Israel stopping this genocide in Gaza. That's why they're attacking Israel. So
yeah, that would be the way to end it, and that's, give the Houthis credit. They are the only ones fighting for the Palestinian people, and the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Turks, the Saudis, they're all cowards. They're all a bunch of disgraceful cowards. And, the United States is an enabler of genocide, unfortunately. I interviewed Mazen Kumsia yesterday. Talked to him. He's, he is lives in the West Bank, Palestinian, a doctor, a PhD in biology, taught at Yale University. But he's a Christian, a Greek Orthodox Christian, uh, and yet he has been fighting, upholding the rights of the Palestinians, trying to secure their rights for all of his life. And his is an example of what Israel's trying to destroy. He's not a violent man, and we need to understand that much, well, perhaps all of the violence that has been carried out by Palestinians against Israelis is motivated out of revenge, out of anger, directed at Israel that has come in and stolen their land. These the talking to Mason and with respect to he's Palestinian. Well, his parents were born there, his grandparents were born there, his grandparents' grandparents were born there. His grandparent. I mean, it goes back. I said, was there ever a time when your family moved here? Your relatives, your ancestors moved to this land from some other place? No, they've been there all along. They are the original inhabitants, going back to the Canaanites, going back 3,000 years. So this is, what the United States is promoting and enabling right now, both in Israel, in Palestine, and carrying on these attacks carried out in Yemen. It's wrong. It's evil in my view.
The other thing, Larry, right now we've learned that Lebanon, after years, has a new president,
Mm-hmm.
Joseph Aoun. What do we know about him, and what are the objectives of this administration in Lebanon? Are they gonna unify Lebanon? Are they gonna be on the part of the West fighting Hezbollah? What would happen internally in Lebanon?
Well, at a minimum now, it gives the West somebody to talk to. Aoun, General Aoun, is a Maronite Christian, is my understanding. But he came to power by, crafting a deal that with Hezbollah. So he is not starting off as someone vowing to destroy Hezbollah. That's what the West wants. What the West wants is the Lebanese army to, gear up and head south and fight and destroy Hezbollah. Now, the reality is Hezbollah had probably destroyed the Lebanese army. Hezbollah, I believe, is far more capable militarily. Well, we'll see. The jury's out. I don't know if Aoun is just going to be another tool and surrender to the West to be their boy, their house servant, their house Negro, a slave, or if he's going to actually stand up and say, hey, I'm a president of this country, and we're going to, you, the United States, and these foreign powers, you're going to stop telling us what to do. We're going to, determine our own way. I don't know what he will do.
What do we expect from Iran? Their movement in terms of their military shows that they're getting prepared for any sort of scenario on the part of the West. But from what we've seen so far, from Trump, from Israelis, how do you expect the situation between the West, the United States, and Iran?
A lot depends upon what Trump does right now. We saw some signs in the last couple of days that despite Trump's bombastic statements and, we're going to take over Greenland and take over Canada and attack Panama, that in reality, Trump is working the diplomatic angle behind the scenes. Um, for example, last night he admitted that he said, "Hey, yeah, we're in talks to, talk to Putin and talking to Xi. He wants to talk to Xi Jinping. I think is a way to help, you know, broker contacts both with Russia and with Iran." Um, when Trump released Jeffrey Sachs' commentary at the Oxford Union, and I think you played that the other day on your show. Where uh, where Sachs calls Netanyahu a deep, dark son of a bitch, which Jeffrey's normally not one to use language like that, but I think it was entirely appropriate and accurate description of what Netanyahu is. That's got to have caused Netanyahu to go, oh, wait a second. Trump's putting this out as saying, hey, this is worth paying attention to. So maybe Trump is keen on actually negotiating a settlement. I don't see Iran is not of the mind that it's going to fight its way out of this militarily. Now I saw your conversation with Graham Fuller, and I guess he turned the question around to you as far as what is there is President Pezeshkian sort of taking Iran in a different direction from Ayatollah Khamenei, and that is there a big split developing there, or is Iran still pretty much together? We keep hearing different sources in the West keep saying, "Oh, Iran's in real trouble. The economy is terrible. They're suffering. There's great internal dissent." I don't believe that necessarily, simply because I chalk it up to this disinformation that is constantly being put out by the West. We've seen it with respect to Russia, but I do believe that Iran is willing to negotiate. And we're now starting to see, the commentary out of Israel where, well, maybe Iran's not our biggest threat. Maybe it's Turkey, which is, you think? So this, the situation in that entire area that encompasses from Israel,
It's so fluid.
Palestine, Egypt is chaotic, just completely chaotic.
Yeah.
Oh,
As
oh,
you
by
mentioned,
oh, by the way, yeah, so remember I was saying, right after Assad was ousted, and people said, "Oh boy, this is a big loss. Iran, the big loser. Iran's really the loser. Oh man, they can't. They're now. There's no longer smuggling. They're not going to ship the weapons to Hezbollah." Well, now what we've heard is they reestablished. They had other lines. There are other ways to move weapons to Hezbollah, which they have been used through ancient smuggling routes. I think what people fail to consider is that one of the reasons Iran went through Syria was, if you will, it was trying to at least show respect to Syrian sovereignty, to not do something out of Syria's knowledge or control. And the same with Lebanon. So, and what we've also discovered in the last 2 or 3 weeks is that when that arrangement was in place between Iran and Syria, that the Israeli intelligence service had penetrated Syrian intelligence and military service. So they knew exactly what was going on with Iran. They had information. Now that those Syrian entities have been dismantled, or are now under the control of HTS, Israel is blind. It doesn't know what Iran's doing. So, as I said, this notion that all of this brought everything, put Israel and Turkey in the driver's seat is just crazy.
as you mentioned in the Jerusalem Post, there was an article according to a government committee in Israel that
Yeah,
Israel must be prepared for a potential war with Turkey or Turkey.
yeah.
How is that? Is that a legitimate concern on their part, in your opinion?
Well, absolutely. Well, do you take the son of Erdogan seriously? Where 2 weeks ago he held a rally, and basically it was the next stop is Jerusalem, Al-Aqsa Mosque. Turkey controlled Jerusalem for almost 600 years. They got sort of used to it. They're willing. They're expressing a willingness to go back. I mean, the only reason they're not there now was because they chose the wrong side in World War One, and the Brits forced them out, and carved up this area that we call the Middle East or West Asia, whichever one you prefer. And so, yeah, Turkey. There is the fact that they've aligned themselves with the likes of HTS, and the notion that, oh, HTS, yeah, they love the Jews. They can't wait to get along with Israel. Cut me a break. Good God. This kind of nonsense has been prevalent within both Israel and Washington, D.C. over the last 60 years, and it always ends up blowing back on them.
And they don't learn anything from what has happened so far.
Yeah, flat, man, this is a flat learning curve.
The memory doesn't work.
Yeah, learning nothing. Keep hitting themselves in the hand with a hammer going, God, that hurts. And then they hit them again. Oh, man, that hurts. Hey, stop hitting yourself with the hammer.
Terry, if we assume that Israel is right and there could be some sort of direct conflict between Israel and Turkey, how is Israel capable of fighting Turkey on the ground?
Dude, come on. They're not capable of fighting Hamas. I mean, seriously. They have been unable to defeat Hamas. Yeah, they're good at killing women and children. They're good at killing unarmed people. But Israel does not have unlimited military resources. And so it's already in a fight in Gaza. It's in a fight in the West Bank. It's tried to fight and it lost in Lebanon. Had to beg for a ceasefire in order to try to salvage its reputation. Now it's expanded operations into Syria, into the Golan Heights and surrounding areas. It's overstretched, and then it's going to take on Turkey. No, not in anybody's reality would that happen, or that they would succeed. This is, I've said it, for quite a while. Israel cannot fight its way to peace. Ultimately, it's going to have to negotiate and make some concessions, but the problem is it is under the control of religious fanatics who are not about to do anything that would be conciliatory or from a negotiated standpoint. They're not going to do it. So I think they're going to continue this route until they destroy themselves through their military overreach. That's where it's headed. Is that, I don't know if that's going to happen in the next year or 2 years, but it's ultimately going to happen. They cannot sustain this. This is an unsustainable path that they're on.
According to a government committee in Israel, the Jerusalem Post reported that Israel must prepare for a potential war with Turkey or Turkey. And it was Iran, right now Turkey. How long does it take to bring some sort of sanity to the Middle East?
There's a couple things. I think the most immediate problem facing Israel and the United States, and the reason why I bring that up is, frankly, we're in an American-centric world right now where the only thing that matters is what matters to America. And Israel is what matters to America in the Middle East. But we're also smart enough, Trump is smart enough to know that an Israeli-American attack on Iran would lead to disastrous, consequences in terms of Iran, because we can't knock Iran out. So Iran would retaliate, and the retaliation would be the destruction of Middle East energy resources, which would throw the world into an economic crisis that is the last thing Trump needs when he's trying to build Fortress America. But Trump also has been given a gift, and that gift is the collapse of the government of Bashar al-Assad and what that's done to the axis of resistance and such. Doesn't mean the fighting's over. I mean, we'll find out what's going to happen to Hezbollah when the ceasefire that was negotiated with the Israelis in November expires this month. 60 days. Israel said, we're not withdrawing from southern Lebanon. I think you're going to see Hezbollah become a resistance movement whose function is to evict Israel from Lebanese territory, and Israel is going to be trapped in a conflict in southern Lebanon that they can't win. But this time, Hezbollah won't be backed by Iran. The umbilical has been cut, and Iran is looking to create its own fortress Iran. You're going to see a lot of consolidation of power around as people seek to redefine power structures. Iran on January 17th, 3 days before Trump becomes president, will sign a strategic agreement with Russia that will be a game changer. Trump will have to take that into consideration for anything he does, to include the potential of an attack on Iran. But the Iranians have also signaled they're ready to have negotiations. If you remember in 2018, Donald Trump withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, because he called it a bad deal. And again, you can say what you want about Donald Trump. He's the most honest politician we have out there right now, bar none. He may be stupid, and I've accused him of that many times, but he's not going to lie to you. Okay? Obama lied to the American people in the world. Obama signed an agreement, or entered an agreement in 2015 that he didn't believe in. And he lied to us about it. He said that it was there to create a breakout window of 1 year for Iran's nuclear program to become a nuclear weapons program. But he did it through this, because he couldn't deny the Iranians their NPT rights under Article 4, which means they can enrich uranium. He couldn't do that in perpetuity, so there was these sunset clauses. And the sunset clauses, as they expired, allowed Iran to install more modern centrifuges and to accrue greater stockpiles of enriched materials, so that the 1 year window disappeared. Obama, in April of 2015, a couple months before the JCPOA entered into effect, gave an interview with NPR where somebody asked him about, well, what happens when the sunset clause? He said, well, we will re-engage on that issue at that time, meaning the United States had no intention of allowing the sunset clauses, that if Iran didn't change and voluntarily walk away from this nuclear program, that the United States would have intervened at that point in time to pull out of the JCPOA or somehow ensure that Iran never got this capacity. The JCPOA was just about buying time. Trump comes in and he confronts the intelligence community. And he says, wait a minute, time out. You guys did an assessment in 2007, right? Yes, boss. And in that assessment, you said that Iran had a secret nuclear weapons program as of 2003, right? Oh, yes, boss. And then they voluntarily did away with it, right? Yes, boss. And there's no evidence that they're doing it today. Yep, right. Where is it? Oh, we don't know. What was it? Oh, we don't know. Do you know anything about it? We don't know. Well, what happens if Iran wants to, because now you've just signed a deal that says at the end of the sunset clauses, they're going to have all the enrichment capability, all the enriched material, and they have a nuclear weapons program that you don't know anything about. It just magically went away. What happens when it comes back? This is a bad deal. And he's right. From that standpoint, it's a 100% bad deal. Bad deal. Good deal for the Iranians. Bad deal for the United States and Israel. And he said, we're done. I'm not doing this. Pulling the plug. But the interesting thing is he didn't say, okay, bad deal, now let's attack Iran and eliminate their regime, which is what Israel wanted. What Trump said is, I want a better deal. See, Trump's looking for a deal. He's not looking for a war. He's looking for a deal. And now you have an Iranian president who says, yeah, we'd like a deal too. We're not looking for a war. According to statements, according to the Turkish foreign minister, who apparently had conversations with the new Iranian president. The president said, we don't want to fight with Israel. We don't want to fight with the United States. We're not looking for confrontation. We're looking for, normalized relations, maybe not with Israel, but we're not looking for war, but we're looking for, BRICS and doing all this stuff. But we also want to work with the West. We're not totally jumping over to BRICS. We'd like to work with the West, and we're willing to negotiate. And the implication is the only thing to negotiate that they can negotiate is their nuclear program. So I think you're going to see Trump, rather than coming in trying to start a war with Iran, Trump's going to come in and try and negotiate away a war. And the Iranians, I think, are going to work with him. And Trump will have to be somewhat constrained. For instance, in the past, the United States has linked Iran's nuclear program with their ballistic missile program because the Israelis have told us to do so. But Iran's not going to give up their ballistic missile program. That is their strategic deterrence, which is okay as long as they don't have nuclear weapons on board. So I think you're going to see a good faith effort on the part of the United States to negotiate a deal with Iran to bring an end to Iran's nuclear weapons potential. And I think the Iranians are ready for that deal.